So here is the entire page for today, just so you can see the overview. We've got 3 words that we're going to work on today, and we're going to start by focusing on our first word. I'm going to cover up the other ones for right now so we don't get distracted. So our first word that you're writing in your vocabulary is the word cell. So our first word today for vocabulary, our first word for unit number 2 is cell. And the definition of cell is the cell is the smallest, it's the smallest, most basic unit. It's the smallest, most basic unit of structure and function in living things. Again, the cell is the smallest, most basic unit of structure and function in living things. And don't worry, we're going to define structure today, and we'll define function next week. So if you don't know what those words mean, don't worry, we're getting there. So again, the smallest, most basic unit of structure and function in living things. So the key thing you need to know about the cell is also known as the smallest unit of life, right? So cell is the smallest unit of life. It is what all living things are made up of, and it is the smallest individual unit that's alive. So for example, for my example here, I'm going to draw my stick figure person of awesomeness, and I'm going to draw a little arrow that shows that a person like you and I, we are made of billions of cells, right? We are made up of billions of cells. Our bodies are made possible by groups of cells joining together and working together. So that individual cell, right? Individual cells combine, and you can also have individual cells all by themselves living on their own too. So if we have living things that are made up of lots of cells, we're going to have a slightly different name that we call them. And a word that we use instead of saying living thing, another word we're going to use for living thing is organism. So you're going to be hearing me use organism all the time because it's a little bit easier than constantly saying living thing. So our next word today is organism, O-R-G-A-N-I-S-M, organism. And an organism is any living thing. So an organism is any living thing made of one or more cells. Again, an organism is any living thing made of one or more cells. And what we're going to be seeing this week is that something that unites all organisms is that they share 5 characteristics. Characteristics, and I almost don't have enough space to fit it in my box there. So organisms share 5 characteristics. Characteristics are things that describe someone or something. So for my example, I'm just going to list a couple of different types of organisms, and I'm going to try to be inclusive here and think about all the different kinds of organisms that exist on our planet. So first of all, I'm going to start with the tiniest kind of organism, which is bacteria, right? People forget bacteria is a living thing. It's an organism. It's made of one cell, and they've been incredibly successful for billions of years on our planet. So bacteria. The largest organism by comparison is, I'm thinking of a blue whale. Although I've also heard there's a type of fungi that is incredibly large too. So a blue whale is an organism. Let's not forget about a redwood tree, right? All of our plants are also organisms. Dogs, cats, spiders, crabs, horses, and again, organisms can be small and microscopic like bacteria, or organisms can be giant and huge like redwood trees or blue whales. So that is our second word today, organism. All right, so we're going to go back to, in this definition, the word structure, because we're going to be hearing the word structure a lot, not just this unit, but the entire year. So structure, this is our last word today, our last vocabulary word. Structure is the way something is arranged, and how its parts relate to each other. So the way something is arranged and how its parts relate to each other. So when students often see this word on a quiz or a test, I will often say it means how something is built, right? What is something made of? So in the details here, I'm going to write the way something is built, right? So when you see on a quiz or a test and it's like, what is the structure that makes up a cell wall? It's asking you, what is the cell wall made of, right? What are its parts? How is it built? So I'm going to give you an example of a kind of normal object, not a cell-related object, that is obviously made of some parts, and the way that those parts are arranged gives the object its kind of purpose. So let me draw some objects here. So let's say we have a piece of long wood. Let's say I have another piece of long wood. And then let's say I have some smaller blocks of wood, right? So right now, these are just some pieces, right? These are parts. And structure is about the way that these parts are arranged and how they relate to each other. So if I take the two long pieces and I put them on the outside, and then I take those little blocks and I put them in the center, well, now I have a device that's called a ladder, right? So what this is showing us is a ladder, right? L-A-D-D-E-R. A ladder is made up of these different parts, and the way that they're arranged allows you to put your feet on the little pieces, and then you put your hands along the long pieces on the side. So structure is the way something is arranged and how its parts relate to each other, right? So if somebody asks, what's the structure of a ladder? Oh, a ladder is made up of these smaller parts, and we would talk about how they're arranged and relate to each other. So those are our 3 vocabulary words for today: cell, organism, and structure. I'll leave this up on the screen for a few more moments, and then we're going to go over these words together.